Hi, everyone. It is Monday, September 16th, and I wanted to give you a quick update. So earlier, it was looking like maybe we would have the good potential to see the northern lights. Now it's starting to wind down a little bit, but these solar storms can ebb and flow. So here's what I'm going to do. I am going to give you a lot of explanation as to what's going on, why we could see the potential for the northern lights tonight. It's an outside chance. It's not looking as good as May 10th, but earlier it did look pretty good. Now, here's the deal. I'm gonna share this screen because I've got a lot to talk about here. But we're gonna start off with why are we having this potential for the northern lights tonight? And by the way, if you have questions, would love for you to ask away because here's the deal. I know you got questions about solar weather, about space weather. There's a lot that I've learned over the years. There's a lot that I need to learn, but let me go ahead and kind of tell you. On Saturday, there was an X-class solar flare. So I'll bring this up. You can see right here a significant X-class solar flare. X-class is the strongest class. A solar flare is essentially an explosion on the sun. Here you get to see what it looks like. It was from sunspot 3825. It's AR 3825 is the sunspot region. And if we look at this is basically a look at the X-class solar flare. This was on Saturday. It was early afternoon that it happened, or late morning, should I say. Well, just recently, today, the CME, or the coronal mass ejection, reached the Earth. So here you see 3825. Let me make sure you're seeing all this. Yes, this is from spaceweather.com. Here's the sunspot region. This also has the potential to pop off additional X-class solar flares because it's a quite complex sunspot group. This is what it looked like when it exploded. This is basically an animation. And notice how it's not quite Earth-directed. However, a part of it did clearly hit the Earth. So what is this? This is a coronal mass ejection that you're seeing that's shooting off of the eastern limb of the sun. So there you see it kind of moving and spreading out. Definitely a fast CME that arrived this afternoon. And when it hit, you could definitely see the impacts of this. So here's what look at. This is what we have, the real-time solar wind. And this is, by the way, from Discover. So Discover and ACE are the two things that help us kind of measure solar winds and solar storms. And here you see everything's pretty quiet. What you want to look for is when these red areas right here, these red lines, go negative, essentially. And when they start going negative, you see this right here, the BZ, that's what you want, the NT to go negative. Well, that's exactly when it happened. And this is when we were currently under a G4 geomagnetic storm. So that was the maximum level. Now we're at a G2. And it's not quite as strong because notice how it turned back and went back to positive. Now it can reverberate and come back down, but currently it's looking like it needs to get more negative. But clearly that CME did impact the Earth, and that's a coronal mass ejection. This is what happened with the planetary K-index. K-index bumped up to an 8, and an 8 is strong enough for us to potentially see the northern lights on the horizon, maybe not with the naked eye, but with a long exposure on a camera. Here's the current KP index. We dropped back down to a KP5, as I said, so it was looking a lot better earlier. And if we look at the aurora forecast, that red area that you see means that you will see the aurora. Now, there's a website that I'm going to share with you that will show you when the northern lights happen. And so here's a look at the different cameras that you can look at. And so we know that number 16 had the northern lights earlier. Let's see the live feed from Aurora Cam. Pretty awesome stuff. And I posted this on social media. This is a cool website, seetheaurora.com. And there's all these webcams that you can look at. Some are videos, some are images, some are all sky cameras. But let's take a look at number 16. Got to obviously have clear sky. And this was a look. So earlier, this looked a lot better. Let me show you the current live view here as we get to a live view of the northern lights. So here's a live view. And again, this is in Canada. This is in Alberta, and it's Banff, Alberta, the Sunshine Village. Shout out to Banff Sunshine Village. This is at night. You've also got to fight the moonlight too, because tomorrow is a full moon. It's a super moon, and it's also going to be a partial lunar eclipse. That's not a big deal. I'm telling you that right now. But let me show you when this puppy popped off. So you can go back in time, and you're going to notice here this thing really lit up pretty good. So there's a look at past recorded video of the Northern Lights. And this is when we were in a G4 geomagnetic storm, which, by the way, the aurora was seen in Missouri. And you can kind of see the thumbnail. We'll take a look here at some of the Northern Lights views. Pretty incredible. You also got the reddish aurora. And there's a look at some other colors as well. So, man, when that thing popped off initially, it really went nuts. Now you can still see a little bit of faint edges as we're under a G2 geomagnetic storm, but this is when it really looked impressive. And this was right about the time of our newscast. So that's why I was getting excited. But then, of course, everything kind of dropped off a little bit and not looking as good. Now, can it build back up? Yes, it can. So be aware of that. It can build back up, and it could get stronger, and the geomagnetic storm could get obviously more favorable. But as of now, we're not quite seeing that. Look at that. Isn't that incredible? Beautiful colors. So that was a live view about a half hour ago of the Northern Lights when we were under a G4 geomagnetic storm. Currently, if we look at the solar, this is, by the way, the 3-hour average. So this takes a long time to update. We're currently under a KP index of 5. 5 is not strong enough to see the Northern Lights down here. So to sum all this up, that just disappeared. So let me remove that here. Nothing here. I'm confused. Yeah. So here's the deal. I understand you're confused. When I was launching this live stream and we were in the middle of a newscast, it looked pretty awesome. And it was looking like it was a good possibility because we were at a KP index of 8. That's when the Northern Lights went crazy. But currently, the geomagnetic field isn't responding as much. And that's why we're not quite seeing it as much. And I don't think, unless it changes dramatically, it's something to watch and it's something to be looking at. Maybe it builds back in, but as of now, no. Okay. Michael, is this why it smelled like? No, that was probably from the easterly wind, and maybe you're got a chicken farm or something like that. That's probably why, with the easterly wind, that's bringing that in here. So to sum it all up, we had a good opportunity to see the Northern Lights. Also, too, another thing is that the clouds were trying to clear. Let me bring this up full, and I'll show you here. You can't really see it well on the infrared satellite, but those clouds were trying to clear, and the remnants of what was Francine are finally moving out because it was definitely a cloudy one today. So we need to be able to look north. There's quite a bit of clouds. There's also a big anvil that's going to be spreading over. So that's going to impact your viewing of the horizon for sure. You can see all that thunderstorm activity. This is kind of a foreshadow of things to come. But if we look at right here, this clearing that's taken place, and I'm going to go ahead and bring this up as well. I was looking at some of our WeatherBug Network cameras, not seeing the aurora. But here's a look at the clouds that are trying to clear. And this is important because what might happen is we get some patchy fog that develops. So this is a satellite image basically from the College of DuPage. It's a nighttime satellite product because it's kind of tough to see clouds during the daytime. On satellite, it's easy during the daytime. At night, it's a lot tougher. But the purple shades that you see is a clear sky. The kind of the little bit of a turquoise and purple and like, I don't know how to describe it. It's basically this color right here. These are clouds that you can see my cursor on the screen. These are all low clouds. This is all clear. So you can see the clearing sky with this purple and where you get kind of like a turquoise and greenish color and stuff like that, these are low clouds. This is a nighttime product that doesn't work during the daytime. But it's nighttime microphysics and allows you to see essentially where there's low clouds, because the infrared satellite doesn't do it justice. Again, we go back to our weather graphics. I'll show you, you can barely see anything right now because they're all low clouds. So to answer your question, could night vision possibly pick it up? It's not strong enough now because the northern lights I don't think are happening this far south. That was a very short-lived G4 geomagnetic storm. But look at this. Satellite and radar is showing no clouds, or every now and then you see some clouds. But when you go to this product, you can really see it well. And that's how we kind of detect fog. And that's how that fog is going to be developing, where it's clearing and there was a little bit of rain. Right now, that river valley is seeing quite a bit of fog. I mean, quite a bit of low clouds, which will probably prevent cloud cover from being seen. I want to bring up this Rogers WeatherBug Network camera because looking off to the north, you can definitely see the clearing. And maybe a long exposure will allow you to see it, but I don't think it's going to happen with as weak as the geomagnetic storm is right now. So, yes, it looked really, really impressive. It was a G4 geomagnetic storm, which, by the way, was just about the strength of the May 10th storm, geomagnetic storm that we had that allowed people to see the northern lights from northwest Arkansas. So it was looking good. And then as soon as I launched this stream, just like a storm, it died out and it kind of fizzled out. And so that's why it's not as impressive. And we're back at a KP6, so it's fluctuating. Like I said, it kind of reverberates. It goes back and forth and back and forth. Let me bring this up and show you what I'm talking about. So I'm going to share this screen here. And so this is, again, Space Weather Live, a really good site that shows a lot of different stuff. But there's our KP index now jumping up, back up to a 6. The aurora forecast, high latitude is 80, but only 25% for mid latitude. And it looks like the KP index is going to be going down just because the storm is not as strong. So we go back here, we look at that KP index as 6, but we come here and you can see when it was pretty high, it was almost at an 8, and it reached an 8 threshold. Now we currently have a G2 geomagnetic storm, but you click on this and you can look at past stuff. So if you look at the observations, this will tell you that we were at a G4. Now, G4 is pretty strong. And aurora has been seen as low as Alabama and Northern California. So we were pretty close. And then it just dropped off really, really quickly. So how can we tell that? Well, we look at this, and this is called Discover. Discover will let us know how the magnetic field is responding. And in order for it to respond to the Earth's magnetosphere, it's got to be a negative charge, essentially, a negative polarity. And so if it's negative and southward pointing, that interacts with the Earth's magnetosphere that allows the northern lights to be seen. This is when it was really going crazy earlier when you saw it. Then it kind of bounced back up. Now it's going down again. I don't think it's going to go all the way down to a G4 or a G5. So I think that the northern lights aren't going to be seen. However, here's a look at the current northern lights. So they're still going, but they weren't as impressive as they were earlier. Let me get to a live view because that's not the live view. Again, this is Aurora Cam, Banff Sunshine Village. And if you're just hopping on here, let me show you when it was at its max. And watch this kind of, I'm going to play this. I'm going to keep this playing because this will really show you how quick it can come on. Watch this. When that geomagnetic storm really responds. Let's see if it'll play. Yep, it stopped playing. So we'll let that play for a little bit. Go back to StreamYard while that's playing. Lots of fog in Harrison, I know. Exactly. You won't be seeing anything. Yeah, Colby effect. Colby effect on the northern lights. Okay, can I ask about Wednesday morning going on a trip? No problems Wednesday morning. We aren't going to see any rain at all. Come on, play. Don't don't do me wrong like that. Let's watch this evolve. This is over seconds here. Yep. Okay, now you get to see it kind of filling in. I'm going to move the camera. Pretty awesome. Look at that. Look at how fast it develops, just like a storm, like a thunderstorm. Look at that. So this is earlier. This is recorded earlier. This is not live, but it shows you how fast it can come on when you've got that negative polarity and the Earth's magnetic field responds to it. And the solar wind is essentially what carries the um the CME, the coronal mass ejection. That's charged plasma. Yeah, look at that. Lots of colors. Pretty awesome to see. That was tonight, and that's when we were at a G4 geomagnetic storm. But currently, not impressive. Died out, fizzled out. Go here to a little bit more. Man, that's right during our newscast. And then that's when I was like, I got to launch a Facebook Live because if this happens, we might be able to see the Northern Lights. However, not looking as likely for here. So we go to Space Weather Live, got a KP index of 6. Got to get to about an 8 or a 9 for it to be seen all the way this far south. And it looks like the forecast is showing it going back to a moderate storm. And that's exactly where we're at as a G2. Not many G4 storms are issued. So we are in that solar maximum and really starting to crank up the solar maximum. But if you're wondering if there's going to be another opportunity, we'll continue to watch. So here you see the negative value. I'm going to show you another one too. I'm going to go back to this, and I'm going to show you I'm going to show you Discover. Discover is a little bit, or go back to ACE here. So this will show you right here. This is when that solar flare really hit right there, and then everything started bouncing around big time. And then we go back here, and so we're gonna be watching for this, see if there's another X-class solar flare. And I want to show you something else too. This is kind of cool. So I'm going to go to Space Weather Links. I am going to show you um, this. This is pretty cool, but this is a look at the complex structure of that. And go here, make this big. Here you go. Super big image. We'll let this load. And that's not what I wanted. It's having trouble here. There we go. There we go. So yeah, you can see right here. This is the sunspot region. So there's a couple of sunspots that really have quite a wild magnetic polarity. And the red colors is negative, and the cool is positive, which is kind of interesting because it's against what you might think, red being positive and the cool colors being negative. But in a sense, that's not the case with this. But anyways, I wanted to kind of show you that the magnetogram shows those sunspots and those sunspots regions, and it's 3827 that has that complex magnetic field that might that might launch another X-class solar flare, which, by the way, the more this turns from left to right, the more it's Earth directed. And this also could release some solar flares. So there you go. You guys are probably going, what in the world is going on with all this? Awesome stuff in our area. Yeah, it does. Wreaks havoc with that communication. You would know a lot about that. So, anyways, yeah, I just wanted to kind of let you know about that. And I think I'm going to shut it down here. But I will be watching it. And if that goes really, really negative, just to let you know what you want to be looking for is to go to, I'll add this again to the stage to show you. You're going to go to spaceweather.com and then you're going to be looking at Discover and you're going to be looking to see how negative this is. When it gets down to negative 20, negative 30, that'll give you an idea of how strong the geomagnetic storm is. This is when it was a lot stronger. Now it's kind of weaker, but still staying in the negative. So that's why the northern lights are still able to be seen when we go to a live image. It's just not as bright and vibrant as it was. So that is me explaining space weather as well as I can. I'm not a space weather scientist, but I did learn a lot about it. And you're right, it was a glancing blow. There's no doubt about that. In fact, I will show you this. Let me go to this real quick and I can show you. This is a cool thing. This is a NASA model. So let's see if I brought this up here. Add this to the stage. This is going to look like a bad trippy thing, if you will. It's like something out of the 60s. But here is the sun. Here's the solar flare and the coronal mass ejection that was released. So I wish I could slow it down, but I can't. That right there is being sent out. This right here is the Earth. So this is essentially the Earth in our planetary field. You can see how that really was Earth directed at Mercury. I mean, was directed at Mercury, that coronal mass ejection. That's where it was strongest. But it was a glancing blow that did hit us, and it was strong enough to cause a G4 geomagnetic storm. So as that sunspot rotates around the sun from left to right, it takes about 28 days for the sunspot to go all the way around the sun, or for the sun to make a complete revolution. And by the way, it spins a lot faster at the pole, at the equator, than it does at the poles, which is what causes the tangled mess of the magnetic field. It's really cool. Our sun is really awesome. But there's a look at that coronal mass ejection, just barely glancing the Earth. And then here's a look at it coming in. And so it was a brief blow that was pretty strong. However, it has since weakened. And so I don't think those northern lights are going to be seen. Like you said, it wasn't a head-on hit. All right, I'll go for another 5 minutes. If you guys have any questions at all, let me know. Oh yeah, the weather on Wednesday, no problems. Let me show you what we've got weather-wise. By the way, it's going to be heating up. Since I'm on here, I might as well talk about actual Earth weather, right? Here's a look at the 7-day forecast. So tomorrow morning, because of that clearing, there could be some patchy fog. I know we're already seeing that in Harrison. Here is a look at the rest of your 7-day forecast. Mid to upper 80s and lower 90s. Oh my goodness, is that going to be warm? Saturday, upper 80s with close to 90 degrees and a chance of thunderstorms. I'm only going 30% at the moment just because it's so uncertain. And Monday of next week, we might finally start to get some cooler weather. So the start of the autumnal equinox is Sunday morning, by the way, September 22nd. And so that's what we got there. Let's see here. Let me go back to the 7-day for the River Valley. Wednesday is going to be nice, but it will be warm. And Alex, I do see your comment. I'm going to get to that real quick. Here's a look at the heat index. You ready for this? Fall my foot. 101 for the heat index in eastern Oklahoma. Look at the heat index around here Saturday. We're getting back into the 90s, close to 100 degrees. Better break out the pools again. And then Sunday, it starts cooling off a little bit, and that's because that energy moves in. Now, here's this chance of rain. It's a little uncertain, but it would be thunderstorms as that complex of storms drops in from the north. That's because they're going to be on the periphery of a big, giant ridge of high pressure, which is why we're warming up. Then we get some storms potentially on Saturday. It's going to be mainly Saturday afternoon, evening. Then the stormy activity kind of lifts north again. So we got 3 chances for potential for storms. Here's a look at the vorticity. So we're in between 2 systems, potential tropical cyclone number 8. That's not going to be a tropical cyclone because it's on land. Here's a look at the energy that's coming in. Notice, though, if you check this out, we are on the periphery of this giant ridge. So the ridge of high pressure will allow for some little pieces of energy. Doesn't take much, just these little disturbances. I'm going to pause it again because you're going to see this piece of energy right here that kind of dives in, potentially a Baja blast system that gets undetected from the models. There's a look at the energy swinging in, perhaps providing some storms on Saturday. And then that starts to lift northward. So Saturday is going to be our best chance of rain. Then we get some cooler weather potentially, only to have it heat up again. So still pretty warm. However, there is some colder weather out west. Look, it's actually snowing in the Sierra Nevadas. There you get to see a little bit of snow that's popping up. Oh, yeah. Definitely colder out west because of that low pressure system. Okay. Now, talked about Alex. The partial lunar eclipse that's taking place tomorrow, underwhelming, dud, not worth it. I mean, it's like from going 90% full to a full moon. Yes, you might see a little darkening. It'll hardly be noticeable. It's going to be like this too. A lot of it is penumbra, not even umbra. It's penumbra. So you get like this. From this to that. Do you guys notice the difference? No? Well, that's exactly what that partial lunar eclipse is going to be like. Yes, I know it doesn't happen until 2033, blah, blah, blah. It's still not impressive. I'm telling you. That's why I don't like hyping everything. Not a fan of just every celestial event is awesome. No, this is nothing. It's a penumbral eclipse is so dumb and boring. So there's 2 shadows of the moon. As you know, with a what happens with a total solar eclipse. For those that are in the partial darkening, you don't get to see anything. The umbra is where it's at. So there's the penumbra and umbra, and we are going to be in essentially the darkening of the penumbra, which doesn't really provide great viewing, to be honest with you. I mean, it's slight darkening. That's it. Slight. The only thing it does is you start getting the umbra part of the eclipse, but that only happens when at about 9:44. 9:44 is when it's at its max, which will be looking like just like a full moon. Big deal. Not every full moon is awesome. So, yeah. Now, what might be worth pulling out the telescope is that comet that's coming. And that's about a month away, a little less than a month away. Comet, there's a comet that's coming up, and that could be pretty awesome. And I'm trying to remember the name of it. I'm kind of lost it. Comet. It's not Comet in October. What is the name? I can't remember now. Yeah, that's what it is. Atlas. It's going to be known as Comet Atlas, but it's Tachuchi. That's I think that's how you pronounce it. I can't even remember, but it's a crazy name comet. But that might be pretty awesome. So hopefully that's pretty bright in early October. That'll be something to get excited about. Yep, you just talked about the comet. Chuchinchi. Cannot remember how to pronounce that. It's a little old. It's a little late. I have an email too to get it, but yep, it could be pretty good. This comet in October, so we'll just call it Comet Atlas. That's the best way to say it. No, the Earth is not doomed. I love that. looking at some of this stuff. Winter, who knows? That's way too far. Yeah, you can ask Dad on that. I do think the comet is going to be pretty good in October, though. It's hopefully surviving its pass from the sun, and it could be second brightest object in the sky. But winter, who knows at this point? Still too early. We are slightly warming as we look at the El Nino ENSO index. Look at something real quick. Yeah, we've been warming, but we're actually going to slightly neutral. So when we go neutral and perhaps La Nina, that's when we could get an active winter. But to go La Nina that fast would be pretty impressive. So, all right, guys. Well, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll take one last look at what's going on with the aurora, and KP index is 6, and the live view, the aurora is basically almost gone. I'll show you again. We'll add that to the stage. So that's what it looks like, the aurora cam from Banff Sunshine Village. Nothing really going on in the tropics right now. Everything's pretty quiet. If there is anything, it's going to be way out in the Atlantic. Gordon is a tropical depression, big deal, tropical depression, potential tropical cyclone 8, not a big deal either. Don't see anything in the near future. So I think the tropics are pretty quiet. All right, guys, I got to run. But if something blows up, I'll let you know about it. I don't think that's going to happen with the Northern Lights. So it was a good try, but that sunspot's still rotating towards Earth. And so we could get some Earth-directed coronal mass ejections that could be allowing some Northern Lights in the future. So, all right, take care, guys. Thanks for watching. You have a good one. And, yeah, we need some rain. Got to get some rain in here. All right, take care. God bless. Have a great rest of your night.